Hello, Mr. Ambassador. EBS Symposium would like to ask you 31 questions about you for the EBS Symposium community. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Question number 1. Do you prefer Germany or Sweden for living?
You put me on the spot. The first question. It's really tricky. I would say my dream scenario would be to live in Sweden on the west coast in the summer, then in Berlin in the fall with all the cultural activities. Then I would be in Stockholm over winter, which might be surprising, but it's beautiful with all the Christmas decorations and so forth. And then for the springtime, I would move down to Stuttgart, and that would, I think, be a perfect combination.
What is your favorite city in Germany?
Well, for reasons of nostalgia, I have to say Stuttgart. That's where I had my first job after graduating from university, and also where I met my wife.
Which character trait of Germany is not a myth?
Well, we just drove down from vacation in Sweden, and I think the character trait of loving speed at the Autobahn is not fake. It's very real.
In which countries have you represented Sweden?
As bilateral ambassador only in Switzerland and Germany, but I've also represented Sweden twice at the United Nations in New York and once at the OSCE in Vienna.
And which one was your favorite one?
Well, it's very difficult to say, but I always I make a point out of enjoying myself where I am, so I say Germany.
Which is the hardest part of your job?
Well, it's actually, I think, choosing from so many possible activities. In a place like Berlin, which is overrun by political events, be it seminars, dinners, lunches, it's really difficult to pick. Sometimes you make the wrong choice and then you hear from colleagues, should I go on to the other one? But that I would say is the hardest.
What are you most proud of?
Well, in my career as a diplomat, I think it is having been part of the team that negotiated a ceasefire in the very bloody conflict in Nagorno-Karabakh back in 1994.
What are the 3 words to describe yourself?
Open, social, and sailor.
What is the main aspect for Sweden having a lower corona infection rate than Germany?
Well, I don't think we have a lower rate. I think we have similar developments. We have more deaths in Sweden, but our numbers now are quite good. And we decided already from the beginning to have a long-term strategy, not to close everything down and then open up again, but really to ask people to keep the distance, to wash their hands, and to stay home when they're sick. And that's what we've been doing since March, and it still works, and now our numbers are very low.
German or Swedish food?
Ooh, that's another tricky one. If I go for fish or shellfish, definitely Sweden. But I love Bavarian and Swedish food. A real favorite is Maultaschen, but also Linsen and Spätzle, and then the heavier stuff.
Which languages do you speak?
Well, I speak, I think, perfect Swedish, good German, good English, and I can also imitate Norwegian and Danish.
What is one thing you still want to learn?
I really want to learn scuba diving. I've had that on my list for the last summers, but like this year we had the coldest July month in 5 decades, I think. So I decided to postpone it until next year.
What is your best memory of your university time?
Well, I think it's graduation, which was really nice, but also immediately after I finished, I got a scholarship to go down to Stuttgart and work for Daimler-Benz, which is basically where I learned Swedish and got to love Stuttgart.
Have you ever met the Swedish royal family?
Many, many times. think all of them.
Which career advice would you give a young, ambitious student?
I would say listen to your heart, follow your interests, don't be tactical, thinking that you have to study certain areas to reach your goals. I think you should really focus on what you're interested in, because that will also yield the best results.
If you could give the German government one advice, which would it be?
I try to give them good advice all the time. No, I think it would be keep up the good work of keeping the 27 remaining EU countries together. That's very, very important.
How would you describe your job in one sentence?
It is a very varied job where you one day can be deep into an analysis of something that's going on, say in Germany, and the next day you're informed that a bus with 50 Swedish guests has crashed somewhere on the Autobahn. So it's really, you have to be open to almost anything.
What has been your greatest achievement in your career?
I'm a very humble person, but I've been part of two very successful campaigns to get elected into the United Nations Security Council. The first one was in 1996, and the second one was basically from 2014 till 2016, where Sweden was elected to serve 2017 and 18.
Who was your role model when you were a child, and who is it now?
Well, role model is difficult. My first idol was Little Joe in Bonanza. I wanted to be a revolver hero just like him. Now with some more maturity, I really studied Dag Hammarskjöld a lot. He was a very inspiring leader, and he still talked very warmly about at the United Nations in New York.
What can you learn from him in one sentence?
I think to really follow your inner beliefs. Don't listen too much, even to powerful leaders. Know what's your mission, the organization you are heading, and work for the common good.
How does the corona crisis affect your daily life?
Very much. I'm used to traveling around in Germany quite a lot. I'm used to meeting lots of people almost every day, and it's been very little. Everything has basically been online.
How often do you travel during corona crisis?
Not at all.
Which two key aspects have you learned during corona?
Well, first, I think it's been for many of us opening our eyes to the digital world. It is possible not only to have meetings, but also to have seminars, presentations online. I think that's something we will keep up even after the immediate crisis. The second, I think we decided to split the embassy in two teams, and it worked. I mean, for all practical purposes, but it was really tough for 3 months not to meet your staff on a daily basis. So the social interaction is so important, even in times of corona.
How did you become an ambassador?
Well, I've done almost 30 years now in diplomacy, and I applied. The first time was in 2006 to become ambassador in Switzerland. I was lucky to be selected by the government. It's really an open process. There's no secret rooms anymore. Anyone can see who applies and if it's the right choice or not.
What does stand up to stand out mean to you?
Well, that's similar to what I said about Dag Hammarskjöld. It's really to be true to yourself, to your beliefs, and also to openly advocate. Let me make one example. In Sweden we have a feminist government, running a feminist foreign policy for more than 5 years. And I decided very early on that what I could contribute was to join the he for she movement, where men are supposed to see women much more actively, not necessarily always look for a copy of yourself, but also to be more open to the needs of women when it comes to recruitment, career, salaries and all that. So I think that's really, to me, stand up and stand out.
In which areas does Sweden have to change its policy the most?
That's a very difficult question, and as ambassador officially representing the Swedish government, I can't see any.
Do you work with the Secret Service?
That happens, but it's secret.
What was the most frightening thing you have ever been involved in?
There's been a few instances where I really thought this would be dangerous. I think the most frightening was on one of our mediation trips between Armenia and Nagorno-Karabakh. The helicopter started just suddenly going up at high speed. So I was ordered to go out and check with the pilots what's up, and they said, "Oh, we have everything under control. We have enemy flight incoming, but we will hide behind the cloud." So that was scary, but we survived, and I think we got to our goal.
What is the one thing that you are most excited about at the 31st EBS Symposium?
To meet young people. I love meeting young people. Myself, I'm 58. I still feel rather like 28. But I realize every time I meet young people that generations are very different under each other. And I think it's so stimulating to talk to younger people, to discuss with them, to hear their worldviews. That can also help the older generation understand the world of today.
Thank you very much.